Many believe that sleep apnea has always been with us. However, the medical community is profoundly divided on the best courses of action and treatment. The reasons why are many, and not without some controversy. General practitioners, specialists and insurance companies rarely agree on a suitable and effective program of treatment. Along with significant financial factors, the patient is forced to become their own advocate. These speakers shared stories of their steps and missteps on that path to treatment in the hope that others will benefit from the lessons they learned along the way. We thank them for their strength and generosity of spirit.
And I was told I was very severe, but I wasn't told what else was I going to do. I went to my computer and I sent a message to my doctor. And I said, okay, you've just diagnosed me. I am very severe, but no one's told me what happens. Can you tell me what we need to do to prevent a mishap? But how many patients know to do that? But the next challenge was, because I, unfortunately, do not have insurance. I'm private pay. And I asked, when I walked out of that sleep study, that I would need a machine. And I said, well, what do I need to do to get that? Well, the machine that we can give you is the $800 one. And I said, that's the one with the humidifier, because I knew there were some. He said, oh, no, those are more. But the one that you can get is the $800. And I said, okay, well, that means I need to wait a few months because I got to build up for that. And I just remember thinking, but don't I need that? And it's like, it's available to you, but you have to purchase it. And I am still trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do, what I'm supposed to ask. It's those long gaps between us getting the attention that we need that I do worry. I worry as a leader in the community with our folks who may not have the financial ability to be able to take care of the situation. And I changed my life as soon as I've started learning. I've changed the way that I eat. I am now enrolled in a gym. I'm doing everything possible to help myself stay healthy, but also to be able to provide hopefully inspiration to others as I go through this journey, trying to find out what my new normal is going to be.
I'm amazed that the first thing the doctor didn't pull off was sleep apnea. I'm just amazed. They had me starting to go through series of tests. So, the world started crumbling apart. It was worse and worse and worse until about 2 months later, they did schedule an emergency sleep study. I think that that's a miserable experience. I'm not sure why, because I think that there's far easier ways to tell whether somebody's, holding their breath at night besides having to go through that. I described it to people as it's like sleeping in a tool closet. After they said, oh, you have sleep apnea, now you got to come in and get another sleep study so we can set the machine. And I said, why? I have it. Just give me the machine. And it was clear that it's sort of, you have to come in. And then I went in, and it was so miserable that I just went home after about 20 minutes. And they said, well, you put you on the machine, it made it better. I said, what else do we need to know? And I didn't go in, and then I got a call saying the insurance company was going to refuse me, and I went to the doctor, and he gave me the machine finally. It was an onerous experience to get the machine, the cost of the machines.
And I was sent from one doctor to another. In fact, here's my list. I was sent to a gynecologist because it was hormones, to an ear, nose, and throat because I wasn't breathing right, an allergist because I wasn't breathing right, a neurologist, there had to be something wrong with my brain, an endocrinologist. The endocrinologist's theory was that the brain was a gland, and he was with UCLA and he experimented with medication, and to a psychiatrist. I was given pills, and I was a compliant, obedient patient, so I would take whatever I was given for like 8-9 months at a time until I realized I still wasn't sleeping. That journey of looking for doctors took over 20 years. From the time that I was in my late 20s, early 30s, I wasn't diagnosed until I was in my 50s. So I was diagnosed in 2006. And that was an amazing, interesting thing by itself. Every time I changed jobs, I also had to change health plans. And they sent me home with some sort of a weird machine test, whatever, and decided I had sleep apnea. And then once I had it, they threw me into a room of 8 other people so I could get trained on my machine. I was the only woman in the room. Every one of us had a different machine, different mask. They played a video. I fell asleep during the instructional video. The people that were the DME people that were walking around that were supposed to, wouldn't answer questions. And if they did answer it, they answered it to the men and not me. I had the only machine that that did make sense. None of it. Of course, I didn't know. I didn't know where to turn, who to ask questions with. It wasn't until 2 or 3 years later that I found out that I was issued a model of machine that was no longer in manufacture, was out of date, sitting on some dusty shelf, and that the DMA company, according to the reviews I eventually read online, was the worst DME company. I also learned later that I needed not just a CPAP machine, but I needed one with a humidifier. Then 2 years later, a machine that had a humidifier that was heated. All of this came in steps, 2-3 years apart from one another. I went through 26 different mask styles. I kept a spreadsheet so I wouldn't duplicate it or wouldn't let a doctor duplicate it by accident. I went through 7, I'll call them doctors, practitioners who are experts in the field, who are the gatekeepers for getting the equipment, the sleep studies, whatever, blah, blah, blah. None of them were, in my opinion, particularly competent because I didn't present as a typical patient. My issues and needs were not typical. I was with, I think, 9 different DME companies. 9 companies. None of these guys knew what they were doing. It wasn't until I was in a situation, the technician also had sleep apnea. Because he had sleep apnea, he told me all these tricks, all these things to do. He said, ask your doctor to give you a prescription for a specific machine with a specific name, blah, blah, blah. He taught me all these things, how to clean it differently, how to do better. It was radical. Everything changed from then. And I've been a compliant patient ever since.
We need to get better tests for kids. We need to get better at the sleep lab because, as somebody said, it's like sleeping in a tool shed. Nobody sleeps well in a sleep lab. Nobody sleeps well during an overnight sleep study. That's why they've started trying to do home sleep studies, but home sleep studies don't pick up on REM abnormalities very well. It's the 21st century, and as one of our medical advisory board members said, we're still using 1980s technology in our sleep labs. We need to get better at having devices, particularly for kids, that pick up on stuff. And we need devices that are tested on kids too. And devices that help pick up women. Because the default in the medical community is, men, adult men. And we need to get better at that so that people aren't losing years of their lives.
I actually had a very good, young, trained neurosurgeon at the Miami Project to Cure Paralysis who looked at me and says, listen, there's no doubt you are a candidate for artificial replacement surgery in your neck for a disc, but let me tell you something. What you've got going on is something else. He goes, I can go fix your neck, but that's not going to solve what's going on in your head. So he said, when you go back out to California, you start over, you get off the meds, and you rule out one variable at a time.
Why is questions about sleep not part of a yearly physical examination? Why don't our doctors simply ask that? Nowadays, DMEs go out, oh, you need a machine? Either they mail it to you or they drop it off. Here it is. Here's how you turn it on. See you later. About 5 years ago, and I'd already been on sleep apnea for over 20 years, and my new machine came in, my provider billed the insurance company and then said it was denied. And so I went back, asked why it was denied. They said because the panel of doctors, which were established back then, said I didn't meet the criteria, so I put an appeal, it was denied. We finally went back and forth, and I was literally told that the panels of doctors are much more intelligent than I am, so I need to stop arguing about it. Finally, I talked to the woman on the phone from my insurance company. I said, have you ever looked at my file? And they said, I don't need to. Our doctors told us what you need. I said, take a look at my file. She put me on hold. 5 minutes later, she came back and approved my machine. So we do need to fight these things and to make it easier for patients to have access, education on that, and then access on how to use it, the training, and to get that part of the profession a lot more into what we're doing with sleep.
And it took me about 6 weeks to get into a sleep center. So that was sort of the first barrier I faced, is that I wanted to get a resolution immediately, and it was hard to get into that first sleep study because they were just overbooked with people needing, solutions to sleep problems. My sleep study was October 6th, and I think I finally got my CPAP on November 8th. So it was a month of knowing that there was a solution out there for me and knowing that I could be getting better sleep and not having it yet. And when my CPAP arrived, it was mailed to me. I never had any contact whatsoever with anybody from the medical device company. So I never, I had instructions on how to put it on, things I could read, but I never had anyone showing me how to adjust the straps or, talking to me about these things. The process with the insurance could be a lot easier and more helpful. I really have been working with the supplies that I first got with my CPAP because it's very expensive to buy the replacement masks and replacement hoses, and my insurance won't cover them until I've met my deductible. So those are basically entirely out-of-pocket expenses for me. The other problem I'm running into is that my insurance does not want to pay for my sleep study, and I'm still in the process of appealing that. They're trying to charge me the full amount for the sleep study. And that was supposed to be, sort of pre-approved between the company and the insurance and the sleep center, but it didn't. Something did not get approved correctly, so I've been battling with that.
But the education, for those of us who didn't even know what sleep apnea is, that education starts in the doctor's office. It continues in the durable medical equipment place and the sleep at the sleep lab. What I think we are all the victims of is siloed medical care. That each of these things are so fragmented and separate that we, the patients, are not at the forefront. If you have a doctor who doesn't know what the equipment is, won't touch it and won't know how to use it, doesn't know how to set it. You have a durable medical equipment company who can only spend 5 minutes with the patient, won't train them, won't teach them, and frankly don't know what they're doing to begin with. And a sleep technician who doesn't have time during his study to be able to deal with, where does the patient survive in this mess? Because of the fragmented approach, the patients are losing. So I would suggest to this organization, find a way to break down the silos.
If you are on Medicaid and Medicare, very often you don't get resupplies. I get mine when I do from my physician at the sleep center. I call. They don't respond. The company that brought the machine, they don't respond. The doctor calls, they don't respond. They tell the doctor, oh yeah, they get the prescription. Yeah, we'll take care of it. You better believe I'm totally convinced that they have charged my Medicaid, Medicare account for those supplies, but those supplies never find their way to my house. Right. They never find their way to my house. And so when I go in for my appointments, I have to tell the doctor, I need a mask, I need a hose, okay? And she digs around in the office for supplies that Big Pharma brings in, okay, says, hey, this is the new thing on the market, blah, 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 okay, and sends me home with that so that I have something. And then, of course, she sends the customary prescription out, and nothing ever comes to my house. So that's definitely an issue, okay? That's very real in people's lives.
I had some trouble after the fact getting my insurance company to pay for the sleep study. And the reason for this, I learned, is that they thought I should have done a home sleep study first instead of being sent into a center first. And I'm not sure where exactly the confusion arose there, if that's something, the way my doctor should have prescribed it. But I think it's kind of terrible. The patient gets stuck in the middle of that argument between, the doctor and the people who provide the sleep study and the insurance company. When you're when you have sleep apnea, you have so many other things going on of, the fatigue and the depression and the tiredness. You're not in a good position mentally to be a strong advocate for yourself and to go out and do a lot of research and learn, oh, I should be doing a home sleep study, or I should be doing this, or I should call the sleep center and follow up and make sure that they cleared this with my insurance before I went there. So, I mean, the very symptoms of this condition make it hard to be a informed consumer ahead of time.